What's up? I'm Drew. I'm your wine club host for all of time. So it is June in 2025, and this is the month that we launch our. This is, you know what? I'm gonna celebrate. This is the month of our 8-year anniversary, which is coming right up on roughly the 27th, I think, is 8 years of being open on State Street. I'm coming to you live from our new location for events down at the factory, and I'm in our new office with our cool new shelving units behind me. And I'm celebrating this month because we are not only 8, but we're putting out our biggest collaboration project yet, and I'm really fired up about these wines. So these are your club wines this month, and for all you Char doggies and Pinot nutcases out here, look for these labels on our shelves. These are really cool. So I'll be kind of quick with this little preview and explanation of these, but I'm super proud of these wines for a couple reasons, and I'll tell you about them. So both of these wines are made by our friend Crosby Swinchat, Entity of Delight Winery. He's been featured in our wine club in the past a bunch. He's, really talented winemaker and somebody who I really care a lot about, and I think he's an incredibly talented person at being a person. Crosby's getting out of the wine industry, and I've always loved the way he makes wine. It's a style that I think is really based in classical Burgundian approach to winemaking, letting a wine take its time to become itself. Always really full intensity, but subtle at the same time. Super both varietally correct and true to site. And when Crosby decided he was getting out of the wine industry, he had a bunch of barrels and tanks filled with wine and asked me if I was interested in buying about 2,000 bottles worth of wine. And I said, "You're crazy." And he said, "Well, I've got, 5 barrels of Pinot Noir from Bassi Vineyard, which is one of my favorite Pinot Noir vineyards in the world. And that's up in Avila Beach on the coast, about less than maybe a mile from the ocean. It's just behind the bluff in Avila. I think it is the closest commercially farmed vineyard to the ocean on the Pacific side that we know of. The other is a vineyard called Riverbench, and he had about 3 barrels of Riverbench Chardonnay, which is something you don't see a lot of. They don't get a lot of fruit out to independent winemakers. They make a lot of really great Chardonnay on their own, but we also had access to this Kerskov Morved, which was about a barrel of that. So all these wines are wine club wines. We'll do the Morved, I think, next month or the month after. I was really proud to be able to take all of that stock, help him leave the industry, and have something that I think we can serve at Satellite kind of for the next year or so that's just going to keep on improving in bottle, that in its own way is kind of special because it's both a swan song and a farewell and something that equally represents what we do super, super well. So I think it's pretty cool. Both of these vineyards are at least organically farmed, but Bassi in particular is farmed by our friends Gina and Mikey Juni. So just to put a little focus on the Bassi vineyard first, It is up in Avila Beach. So when you're passing Pismo, it's like across the Avila Bay there. And if you pull off for Avila, you just shoot in maybe a half mile and go right. It has a view of the ocean. It gets a constant sea breeze. It's a super cold site, constantly drenched in fog, salty air. The dew kind of sits on the grapes, and it gets exposed most days to the sun later in the day, so it's sort of a later ripening site. And they farm it really heroically, focus on biodynamics. It was owned by another friend named Mike Seiner from Seiner Lavallee Winery, winemaker of a bunch of great other brands in specifically the San Luis Obispo region. And that site's just sick. It's really cool. They're also planting a ton of new varietals there, but Pinot Noir is sort of one of the varietals that does incredibly well there. And you don't usually see Bassi Pinot for what we sell this for. So both these wines are going to be on the shelf for $40, and I'm really proud to offer them at that price. The other is the Chardonnay from Riverbench. I could be mistaken, but I think Riverbench really sits on the sort of ancient riverbed of the Santa Maria River. It's an awesome site for Pinot Noir. It's really distinct in this glass. That vineyard's farmed all organically, certified. Awesome fruit. One of our esteemed wine club members, Brad, runs the tasting room in their guest experiences in Santa Barbara, their tasting room in the Funk Zone. And so really excited for him to tell us what he thinks about it. But yeah, the cool thing about the way Crosby makes wine is that it lines up perfectly with the way the satellite typically buys wine. So Crosby generally ferments in stainless steel. After the harvest, really either directly presses lightly the fruit or leaves things whole or partially whole cluster, and gently extracts reds during the fermentation process, really trying to not overly pull out tannins or get astringents out of the wine. He doesn't add any sulfur until bottling. Generally will age everything for extended period in oak barrels, but old oak. None of the wines that I've had from him have ever had any oak influence in them. But yeah, it's all about minimalism for him. There's really, he racks after the fermentation to barrel and then lets the wine sit for 12 to 18 months. This wine's been sitting in barrel for a little bit of extended period, which is really cool for us. These are both 2023s, so they've both been in barrel for about 18 months, and that's just given them a little bit more time to express themselves and come into their own, and gain a little bit of complexity as they sit on the fine lees in the barrel, kind of exchanging nutrients with that little bit of yeast that's at the bottom. They both racked pretty darn clear, so we racked, Crosby racked for us right before bottling, and there's a tiny amount of cloudiness in the Pinot Noir, but the Chardonnay is like absolutely glass clear, maybe with the slightest sort of haze to it. But he doesn't fine, he doesn't filter, and again, he only adds what sulfur is needed to make sure the wine is stable, which for these would be about 10 parts per million added right before bottling. But I want to taste them because I'm fired up, and I just got home from a little trip, and I tasted these out of barrel, and this is actually my first time tasting them out of the bottles that I'm also very proud of. My sister did the art for these ones. She does all the Spaceman art on our other collabs, but because this is more of a house wine that we've got tons of and will be around, I'm going to use the sort of line drawing that El Cuddy, my little sister, did of the front of the restaurant. So initially, this is California Chardonnay, but in a way that I like. So I say that because you really get this profound fruit that hits you really straightforward. There's a little bit of malolactic fermentation in this wine, not complete, and certainly not forced, but you get a little bit of like a buttery, a little bit of like like a popped kernel popcorn type of thing. You spill on yourself a little bit on your brand new shirt. Get the taste a little bit, but yeah, I get like this sort of cream, a little bit of butter, a little bit of roast, a little bit of like baked apple pie, dried banana, something like that. Riverbench is not a particularly warm site, and I'll get more data for the write-up on when this was harvested. But just so you know, the alcohol levels kind of indicate the ripeness of the wine. So the Chardonnay is at 12.6%, and the Pinot Noir, being from a really cold coastal site, is 12.3%. So let's give it a taste. That wine's great. This is like the perfect bridge wine from somebody who either likes kind of more slutty, which I mean more round, voluptuous, higher alcohol Chardonnays that you might find from some bigger producers ending in Bauer, like Ron Bauer. It's a great bridge wine to something that's a little bit more refined and lovely and completely natural, in that it gives you bright fullness of flavor, intensity of the palate, but it's also a great bridge wine from somebody who loves a very lean Burgundian style, because it has this element of structure and clarity and crispness, in that it leaves nothing glycerol on the palate. It's fully not funky, but it really is this sort of like California sunshine expression, but you feel a cloudiness in it, like a coolness, and that comes from it not being very high alcohol. And that's the site of Riverbench, which gets a lot of morning clouds also, just like Avila Beach, but just a little bit more inland, a little bit more sun. This wine gets like a little bit slightly more like underripe tropical on the nose. I get like an apple and pear sort of tartlet type of deal, but also I think the slightest like nectarine type of vibe. What's cool is like these wines did not get bottle shock at bottling. They were bottled about 2 weeks ago, and they are opening and drinking amazingly well. Yeah, full intensity on the palate. Acidity that makes my like tongue scream with like, I want to gleek, and creating tons of saliva. It wants like delicious food. It wants bread, it wants butter, it wants radishes with that bread and butter, and it also wants like barbecue and grilled chicken and salmon. And it's a super flexible wine. It's got great acidity, and it feels like, because it's got this fully, sort of like, it's gone through the full malolactic fermentation, it really has this wonderful subtle richness at the same time that comes across as like a tart cream, something like that. That wine is sick. It tastes even better out of the bottle than it did from the barrel. Oh, how sweet it is. I'm stoked. And I hope you like it too. And then let's taste the Bassi vineyard. So this vineyard was being sold by Mike Seiner to Mikey and Gina, our friends from Lady of the Sunshine and Scar of the Sea, right around when this harvest was going down. I think they were just starting to get into the negotiations for buying it from the Seiner family. And I'm thrilled because it's like a perfect sort of plan of inheritance for them. They are taking on a vineyard that's already been farmed super biodynamically, really with great consideration for not just the vineyard and the local environment, but the homes that are around it and the village of Avila. And this is really like one of those vineyards that is sort of a gift to us all, in that it's a unique site. It's expression of the Central Coast, really in the purest form. Being so close to the ocean, wow. So immediately, like, I get a little bit of, well, I get bright, intense, dark cherries, but I get this like kelpy sort of note, like you would get in the Santa Rita Hills often, because you're right close to the ocean. The air is always exchanging there, blowing back and forth. That's another great point about these sites, is that the air sucks in and sucks out all day, every day. So there's always some breeze going. I get this like, yeah, tar kind of note. Reminds me of like walking. If the whole of the sand at Summerlin Beach was made out of tart cherries and you squished along while you walked, but there were still oil derricks in the middle of the channel, I feel like that's like what I smell here, but like in the best way, like in a really romantic way. I think that tar kind of comes from both maybe the ocean influence, but more so the stems that are involved here. God, that's good. So it feels more like pressed cherry juice with like this salted, very like lightly cured quality than from the Santa Rita Hills. I tend to get much more of like a cherry cola type of vibe. This is not cherry cola. This is like a deep, tense, dark, tart experience. Subtle tannins, really like not water weight. Like it has a nice mid body to it, but it's not very tannic at all, being especially thin-skinned, very coastal Pinot Noir. I drank it. It's gonna age super nicely. It's got so much bright acidity. It's got this saltiness that comes through that's like pairs up with the acidity and kind of creates this like salted, savory, cherry candied note while it's bone dry. There's no sugar in either of these wines. Yeah, it just screams like chill it down or serve it out of the cellar. Just don't serve these wines hot. God, please don't serve these wines hot. It can be served out of an ice cold fridge, but just let it warm up. Like serve small glasses often. I've kind of got it a little cold right now. You can see the glasses are quite condensated. But I like to serve my wines a little cold. Yeah, this wine's so nice. It's really an expression of Avila. I feel like the fruit there gets nice, intense, and tart, but it always has this like power to it. And I think that comes a lot from that it is such a cold site, and it takes a lot of ripeness, like, or a lot of ripening time. So it gets more complex and kind of deep, and these wines can be really, really ageable. I'm excited to see where this goes, but I'm also excited to just serve it now because I think it's something that is delightful. Yeah, and it's just like, you know where I want to drink this? I want to get on a boat in Avila Beach, and I want to pull out in the middle of a kelp bed on a sunny day this summer, and I want to take my top off and sun myself on a boat, and drink a bottle of this with friends, and maybe like eat fresh caught seafood on the boat. I think that would make me happy. Raw or not, I feel like you could grill. This is like an awesome, more even refined, like, this is really super serious wine. Honestly, as is the Chardonnay, but the price and the vibe of it like also kind of lend themselves to just more casual. So this is at home wherever. This is happy at, you know, an 11-course tasting menu, as it is being weird drinking beers on a boat with your shirt off and like a stinky dog nearby. It is great. So I'm really stoked. We even made custom corks for these labels, collectible, only 1935 made. But yeah, I'm thrilled that we have these wines, and I'm thrilled to share them with you. And yeah, if any wine club members want to pick up some cases, holler at your boy. I'll hook you up. But but yeah, look out for these in the restaurant. Try them out. Get some more, put them away, because it's only a one-time thing, and this is the end of an era with Entity of Delight wines, and yeah, I'm so grateful that we got to carry them. So look for a review of the Mourvèdre next month, and I will look forward to sharing it.